Welcome to all our wonderful friends around the world. Today is a treat beyond words.
We are so delighted to have our guest with us today, T.C. Christensen, who's pretty much a household word for so many of us.
And I imagine you all have a hero in your life or a mentor or somebody that has inspired you deeply your whole life. Well, we get to be with TC today because he's done that for us. He has told our family story 4 times, and we just feel like he's part of our family.
That's right.
Can we adopt you, TC?
Yeah,
So
how
while
much
you're-
allowance do I get? That's what I
There you go.
You have to work hard for allowance in our place. And you are such a hard worker, so we're not worried. As you're getting on today, we would love to see where you're viewing from. And so if you wouldn't mind putting that in the comments, and any other questions or comments that you have, please just put those in the comments as you're listening. And let's start by telling a little bit about our guest.
Yes.
So T.C. Christensen is an American cinematographer, film director, and writer, best known for his work on films related to the history of our church. He grew up in Layton, Utah with 9 siblings, and that, gives him a lot of information and ideas for movies, I'm sure. That alone.
An ability to survive around the dinner table somehow.
Yeah. He served as a missionary in Ohio and West Virginia, and he studied filmmaking at BYU and the U, keeping it even there, right? Some of his movies, these will all sound familiar, I hope. If not, look them up. Go watch them. Love
So
Kennedy, Ephraim's Rescue, 17 Miracles, The Cokeville Miracle, Joseph Smith, Prophet of the Restoration, Gordon B. Hinckley, A Giant Among Men, Testaments, a Lewis and Clark IMAX movie for National Geographic, and one for Disney, Roving Mars, and many, many, many more, especially lately. And we're so excited to have him share with you his recent releases, especially The Fighting Preacher.
We'll talk about that so much.
TC lives in Farmington with his beautiful wife, Katie, where he says he continues to be tutored in the finer points of putting dishes into the dishwasher and closing drawers all the way, things like that, They are the parents of 2 children, Tanner and Tess, and they both help you, don't they, with different parts of filmmaking. And his cousin, Ron Tanner, has also collaborated with him on his film, Treasure in Heaven. He's received national and international recognition. If we had an hour, we could name all of those awards.
And not only national, international, but Galaxy and Universal.
That's right. And heavenly.
Heavenly for sure.
Heavenly for sure.
Lots of those pioneers here.
Yeah. So let's just talk a little bit about how you got started. I know that you were interested when you were very, very young. And I love how you said, you need to find something you really do love because you will be doing it for 50 years. And then you say, and then you're dead, but you did it. And you did it. So how did it all start?
Well, my dad was a dentist, and I thought maybe, pardon?
Mine too.
Oh, and I thought maybe I would go into that for a little while, but it didn't take me very long to realize I'm not smart enough to deal with that. So I started looking around for something else, and my dad had a home movie camera, which was not common in the 50s. And it just enthralled me, where I didn't care to be in front of the camera, that kind of thing, but just seeing what is he doing and how is he working that. And I started sneaking that out and taking shots of my friends. And it was about 8th grade. I just said to my folks, you know what, I want to try being in movies. I didn't know what that meant, and they certainly didn't. They were like, oh boy, we got us a weird one here, mother. Because my family's they're medical, basically, doctors and dentists and nurses. Anyway, to start out with, my whole goal with film was to see if I could make my friends laugh. if they laugh, then woohoo! It's the greatest film ever. That's all I cared about. And then maybe I was about 18 or 19. I made a film that actually had a serious side to it, and people seemed touched by it. And I thought, then maybe that's a better ticket than just get a yuck once in a while. And then in researching it and starting to learn about it, you quickly realize how powerful storytellers are and how much they can shape a society and the feelings and moods and opinions of a people. My hero in film is Frank Capra.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
If you know who that is. And most people would know him from It's a Wonderful Life. And Frank Capra was very good at making films about just the little person, just this regular person who overcomes and shows that if you stick to your guns and do what you believe is right, you can make a difference. And Frank Capra has been a big influence in my decisions and in my filmmaking. So anyway, I just started leading more down that path. Let's see. I like to tell, if you remember who Pete Seeger was. He was a songwriter and kind of an activist, and he wrote "If I Had a Hammer" and "Blowing Up the Wind" and some of those great songs. Anyway, he said that I think the secret to the future is finding the good stories and letting them be told. And that's what I spend my time doing is trying to find great stories. And in our culture, we have so many of them. I would never run out of stories to tell. So anyway, that's kind of what got me from the little rat kid to the old rat kid that I am now.
Yeah, be careful. We were born the same year.
all those
yeah, but look everybody look how Angela looks, and then look at me. We're the same age. What happened?
Great.
I'll tell you what. That's a lot of trucks of potato chips going over here.
Oh, wow.
Well, even at our age, there is so much left to do and so many desires. I know you still have a lot of movies in you, right?
Yeah, I do. I hope I'm not dead tomorrow and I get to make some other projects for sure.
You will, and we're looking forward to anything you are involved with.
So you do so much research, and one thing you've done that's unique about your work is it's true. You find true stories. You really research them. In fact, what's that been like? How important have journals been? Can you tell us a little about that? Because it's really touching when we watch it and realize this is a real life story.
Yeah, I think there's a great power in telling a true faith-based story. If I just go make up a story, I think that's been done, and there's wonderful productions and stories that have touched people's lives that way. But when you know that you're dealing with people that this actually happened to, I think it takes it up another level. And the other thing that we do is, because we're making films about people who really did live and experience these things that we're portraying on film, we find their descendants and always invite them to come to the set and to be involved.
I love that.
It affects the mood on the set, the crew and the other actors, when they realize, oh, those people, he just introduced them as that's the great grandson of this person. And it just, I think, adds a lot to a feeling that comes across on film.
So if we find a really, really good story about our ancestors, we can be extras?
Well, you can. I don't know about the Scott kid. You can, Andrew.
I imagine you do get a lot of requests. We want you to film our story.
How do you
Go ahead, Scott. Yeah.
How do you research?
Make the decision.
Well, what I'll tell you what I do is, if a story seems to click with me, and I think I'm just kind of an everyman, you know. I just like things that most people like and get bored at things that I think most people do. And so if I like it, then the next step is seeing if this could really work in a script form. So I'll start writing the script, and sometimes we get through or into the script and it's just not good enough. And I give it to people to respond to, and sometimes their response is pretty, well, not so good. And then it goes back in the file. And other times, the ones that get made, it just keeps building in momentum. And then we go out and, you know, do all the business side of it and raise the money and find locations and all of that, and then just get it going from there.
Wow.
But the research is really one of the funnest things about it, and enjoyed every one of them. Very dependent on journals, especially like with the pioneer film, 17 Miracles and Ephraim's Rescue, just totally dependent on some of those people took the time and sat down and wrote out their experiences. And I'm convinced that most of them, when they were undergoing these experiences, or even later in their life, many times, they just thought, who cares? You know, this is just a thing that happened to me. And only because a granddaughter maybe came and sat with them and said, hey, tell me about your life and how this all came to be. And then it gets written down, or maybe they did themselves. Only because of that do we know about them. And there's so many instances in those pioneer films where just something happened. Let me say, for example, in 17 Miracles, we have this little character named Albert, who was a real person, and he gets trapped under a log and wolves after him. And only because that happened do we even know anything about Albert, because that caused people in the camp, the few that were writing, to write down, oh, there was this fellow named Albert and he got lost and wolves were after him. And they wrote that down and said a few things about him. If he had never been lost that day, the story would have been lost. We never would have known all these great things that happened to the little guy like Albert.
Such a great character. We've loved that story, and so courageous for him just to keep going, keep going.
Yeah. So there is your invitation to write your stories, because they eventually will be the stories that will be told to your descendants. And they need to know how you survived. And, you know, when we came up with a title for today, your movies, you are not afraid to talk about visitations and inspiration and comfort from the other side.
Angels and all that they mean.
Visiting.
Well, the reason I'm not afraid to is because I'm not making it up.
That's right.
They are mentioned or told in these journal accounts, and so why would I be embarrassed? It's not really my story. I will admit to you, there's one thing that maybe your audiences would be interested to know is in 17 Miracles, we have kind of an angelic figure who appears throughout the film. Every once in a while, he's there, played by Bruce Newbold. And that is not from a journal that it's the same person. All these people on the trek later said they had heavenly help or they saw an angel or whatever. And I made it into the embodiment of one person because it makes it more personal. And I wanted to make sure the audience knows these people are being watched over. They're not just on their own.
That's
and
right.
That's the only kind of liberty I take, because really I don't make up things to do with, angels or supernatural kind of spiritual things.
Yeah, it is real and it does happen. And, with all that's going on in the world today, to have that knowledge that there is a deep connection between us and our ancestors, and they are anxious to help. And you have portrayed that so well in so many of your films.
In fact, we love The Fighting Preacher and the stories you told there in that very realm.
Thank you. The Cokeville Miracle is very dependent on that, where all those kids that had the spiritual experiences in the classroom, almost all of them later identified the person that helped them as an ancestor. something very important about that connection between their ancestors passed on and them helping, not just down here helping anybody, but helping their family.
And of course it would be them. Of course.
And we all know that Joseph F. Smith said, those that minister to us are those ancestors that have gone on that still love us, and they love us more than we love ourselves, and all those beautiful quotes. So it's absolutely been taught by the prophets. That's true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And remember when you came to do a fireside for us, you brought some of the survivors, and they talked about some of their experiences. And
it was Cookville that we did there, huh? Yeah. I mean, I go to a fireside and bring, for instance, one of the Cookville survivors, and man, I'm chopped liver. The audience doesn't, they don't give a lick about me, because those people lived it and went through it, and they bring a spirit with them that, man, I just don't have the ability to do.
Mm.
And I love that they, years later or weeks later, would find a picture of great grandma and say, she's the one. I mean, and little kids don't make up that stuff.
Mm-mm.
And they knew exactly who it was that came. That's just,
well, and that film was one of those that's, it's in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses kind of a thing, because when you make a film about a spiritual event that happened to one isolated person, sometimes we've seen in the world and our society, sometimes later it comes out that there's some chinks in the armor there with the way the story was told, that kind of a thing. But the Cookville story, it had too many. There was just so many, and they really supported each other. And these aren't kids that were getting together and friends and saying, hey, let's come up with this idea. It just I just felt very justified in telling that story.
so true.
Mm-hmm. And it's affected so many. I mean, talk about miracles. And you have this gift of being able to just make your viewers feel like they're in the middle of it, like they're experiencing this, and then relating it to their own experiences in their own lives. And we just want to personally thank you for that, using that gift that you've been given and developing that since 8th grade to be able to draw people in and teach them. And especially, I feel, in the Latter-day Saint culture, to bring our ancestors and our heritage to life. And one of our favorites, do you want to talk about The Fighting Preacher, your last movie?
Yeah, but I have to say first that thank you for that, saying that I have that gift. But you haven't mentioned my number one gift really is my ability to choose just the right potato chip and chocolate cake.
There you go. You are so gifted.
I have to make a movie about that someday. But your other gift to that I know people get a little feeling for is I've never seen anybody use light and cinematography the way you do. It's just profound.
Mm-hmm.
You're nice. You're nice to say. Really make an effort to do that. I think it adds to a film greatly.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And we have been studying up on and watching interviews and hearing those that have worked with you and how kind you are and patient and loving on the set. And I know not everybody's that way.
I've had some moments that they will attest.
But I feel like that is another gift, because that's not easy when you're under pressure and you're trying to meet deadlines and make things just perfect. But
it probably keeps the spirit on the set a lot more.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just feel like, I just really want to talk about The Fighting Preacher.
Well, what I wanted to do, and I prepared for this, is typically my son, Tanner, who is the editor and he does all the CG work on our films, very technologically advanced, unlike his old fat bald dad. And he helps me with clips and that kind of things when I need him. Well, he's not available today. So I'm going to do my really high-tech version of this, which is I'm going to just spin my screen and show it off a monitor. It's really kind of...
Okay, and we don't know how to get ourselves off, so we'll just be here watching
quietly
on the side.
Okay. But let me set this up, that this is a clip that is from The Fighting Preacher involving Rebecca Bean. And I don't have this on my reel that I show typically at a fireside or some kind of an event kind of thing. But I love this scene, and I just got thinking that this is a scene that it I hope encapsulates very quickly the feelings that I try to bring into my movies, and we can talk a little bit more about that after we've done it.
Great. Perfect.
Okay, ready for the big spin here.
Elders, I have something to share with you regarding your question. There was a hot summer day, and we had a lot of visitors. We just had Alvin, and I had to carry him most of the day just to get my work done. The Apostle Elder Talmadge was here, and we'd had a wonderful evening, but I was so exhausted, I was in tears, and I still had much to be done. Everyone was in bed and asleep but me. Finally, I got ready for bed. I was crying about my hardships when this dream or vision came to me. There was a knock at the door, and a very handsome young man was standing there. I just knew he was another missionary that had come to see us. He and Elder Talmadge seemed so happy to see each other and talked about wonderful things while they were eating. The spirit was so peaceful, and they seemed so happy to be together. After the meal, I put Alvin to bed and went and talked alone with the young man. He told me how sweet and well-behaved my children were, and I was so happy about that. He walked into the hall, and as I went to wish him goodbye, it was the Savior that stood before me in all his glory. I couldn't tell you the love and the sweetness that he had in his face. He said, "Sister Bean, if you go about your work every day as you have done this day, you will be equal to it. Remember, these missionaries represent me on this earth, and all that you give unto them, you give unto me. Elders, you ask me how I can do it, day after day, and year after year. How can I not do it? I know who you are, and all that I do for you, I do for him."
I love that.
So, let me tell you a couple of things about that. When we're filming anymore, especially now that it's all digital, we have a monitor that the crew can see what we're filming, so they can see if there's a problem with hair or makeup or costume or any of those kind of things. Well, this was a scene that, of course, I was very concerned about, and that it come across properly in a way that brought the spirit. And after we did the first take, I left the room and walked into the other room where the monitor was, and there was my crew. There was probably 10 people sitting around the monitor, and I just came, and they were all tearful, and And I thought, okay, I think it's going to work, folks. I think it's going to be good. This actress, Cassidy Eubert, had never been in a movie. She had never been in a commercial. I was having trouble finding someone that I felt good about. And anyway, and this is the scene that I had Cassidy do for me as the casting session, as a read. And she just did it so well there that she got the part and really took off and ran with it. I really loved her in the film. But that idea that is expressed by Rebecca Bean in that clip is just as Rebecca Bean told it. Rebecca Bean used to give firesides, and in the 60s, somebody was smart enough, they recorded her, like a journal, they recorded her doing the fireside, and I got to hear her tell that story in her own voice. And I just felt like, I'm not messing with this. I'm going to tell it just the way she told it. And one of the things that I love about that story is its empowering of women, where I know women in my life, my wife and sisters and others have expressed at times how hard it gets, and, keeping up with the family and doing all that needs to be done. And Rebecca's little dream or vision that she had tells every one of them, just keep going. You're doing good. You're doing what the Savior wants you to do, and you'll be rewarded for your good work. I thought that was worth telling.
Oh,
Absolutely. So beautiful.
It is very hard to get through without weeping ourselves.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for sharing that. And that story has impacted so many with, I love it. And I love what you did with the Fighting Preacher to show that, Rebecca and Willard were called on a mission, and it lasted 25 years.
24 plus.
24. And they, she needed to have that comfort. And the Savior comforted her, but oftentimes he sends his emissaries, the angels. And like we've talked about, those that love us so much and care about us. And it's just like Elder Holland said, sometimes they're seen, sometimes they're not seen, but they're near. They are near to bless us, right?
Oh, yeah. And you look at the reality of Rebecca's situation, where she's got visitors and missionaries and people coming to that house. She's got to have beds for them, and they got to be clean, and she's got to make meals for them. They don't have a refrigerator. They're living on a farm, and she's got to prepare all this and do all, and then she's got her own family.
I don't know how she did it, but she inspires me all the time. If she could do what she did just daily to survive, then I can handle my problems,
Good.
And not like the neighbors were really supportive.
Palmyra was a little toxic back then.
They had a tough ministering route, didn't they?
Yes, they did.
But Willard, he used his talents and skills, just like so many others, to share the gospel, to show goodness and kindness. And
sometimes believe in the laying on of hands. And I tell you, Rand Packer, who I believe you know, Scott,
very well.
What a great person for me to deal with. He's the grandson of Willard and Rebecca, and boy, he was just a delight and very supportive and brought the family out, and it was just a great experience.
And to be one of those descendants, but we all have those stories. All those who went before us accomplished amazing things, and when we have their stories, and like you said, write those down for your posterity, but also research in your own families what stories are out there. I want to just share, there is a site called All the Stories, and it just lists all the stories that anybody has put on your family search account, on your part of the tree. And I pulled that up. It's a free site, and I have like 800 stories. And so they are there for me to be inspired by. They're for me to research and share with my children and grandchildren, because there are beautiful stories, and so many of them involve angels. And our stories will involve those angels that we are researching about, because they, like we said, they're the ones that care. They want to protect and help us.
So can y'all tell my wife's name is Angel? And she feels strongly about angels.
I
and
feel
so do
this
I.
is our favorite, my favorite topic, one of my favorite topics, because I feel so strongly, like you do, TC, that angels are real and they are there to help us. And thank you so much for portraying so many angel stories in your movies. And, you know, maybe you can just talk a little bit where to find these, your movies, and how to access them, because we want everybody who's watching today to watch all of your movies. Just binge.
What a great goal. I love that goal. Well, you know, the landscape for movies is changing. They are still available on DVDs. They're at the Siegel bookstores and Deseret bookstores and Amazon and those kind of places. But then they're also streaming on Amazon Prime, and Living Scriptures has a great streaming site too. So yeah, they're around, and hopefully they'll continue to be seen by people that are looking for this type of a feel-good film when they're
yes, inspiration, motivation, to know our heritage, all of those things. So do you have something that you're thinking about doing next? Or just generally, I know you don't want to give away any secrets.
I'm happy to tell. I have no secrets. I have a film I'm very excited about, and because of all the COVID bugs, I was not able to. I was going to film it last summer, and then that didn't work out. So we were going to do it this summer, and there's still so many problems with it, and so now I'm hoping for next year. Can I give you my little short pitch on it? You want to hear it?
Yes, please do.
It's 1939. Heber J. Grant is the president. He sends a telegram to the president of the German mission and says, the war is going to start in 3 days. Get those missionaries out of Germany. And that's basically the story. It's getting them out with terrible communications, the country going into chaos, and the miracles that happen to get them out are really very fun and entertaining. There's some really pretty good things that happened there. The short of it is that the last missionary got out and into Denmark on Thursday night, August 31st, 1939. And the next morning at 6 a.m., Germany invaded Poland and the war began. Had they been any later to get them, you know, the borders would have been closed. Anyway, it would have been terrible, terrible thing. But it all worked out, and it was, you could see the hand of the Lord in it. So anyway, that's what we're going to start on as soon as we can.
So I can't tell you how much that means to us.
exciting.
I served a mission in Germany, and I know a lot of those people firsthand. We actually had a missionary that went around and interviewed lots of the saints, and they put all their stories together, and we have access to all those stories, and they remember very clearly what was happening at that time. So
we can make that available if it's
amazing.
helpful.
Yeah, amazing stories. That's a remarkable. I can't wait.
I know. Oh, that's very
I
exciting.
just say ausgezeichnet. Yeah.
Did he just swear at us? What did you say?
So, my dear friend, any last things you'd like to share with us? Today has been so precious to each of us.
Yeah, that's been, I think, longer than we were planning on. But
It's okay.
Thank you for having me. It's always fun to talk about, and nice people. You didn't say anything mean to me. You were nice.
There's nothing like that to say.
All right. I'll be looking
Your
for
gratitude.
the bag of potato chips in the mail you're going to send me. Okay?
Yeah, you have a favorite kind or anything?
There is no bad potato chip.
Is there anything you'd like to end with, TC? What would you like to leave our audience with?
I think I'll recap that hanging in there like Becca Beam did, and knowing that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, and keeping that idea of your posterity in mind, and writing in your journals and letting them know not just the incidents that happen in your life, but your feelings, that they can look back on you and gain strength from your life. Very important.
Absolutely. Perfect.
So important.
Yes.
Thank you so much. And
Thank
just what
you.
President Nelson has said, that gathering on both sides of the veil, the central part of that so much is discovering our ancestors, learning who they are, learning their stories, and then preparing our own stories to be shared with those that come.
Absolutely.
So important. And we leave that with you with deep gratitude today to TC. In the name
And
of
please
Jesus
share
Christ,
this.
amen.
Yes, in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thanks,
Thanks,
TC, so
Thank
much.
you.
Good to be with you.